You're listening to the legendary Vinyl Esquire.
We're the skinny boy. I'm Chuck Fox.
Vinyl Esquire.
Sean and Superman J.
Vinyl Esquire.
We will rock. Chuck, Sean, Jimmy J, and I'm the human Chuck Fox. Superman J is on the wheels of steel. In the air.
Y'all wanna get loose one time? Yeah, I wanna get loose, man. Oh, so y'all really wanna get loose? Yeah, I really wanna get loose. Well, let's go on.
Vinyl Esquire.
Look at skinny boy.
This is Vinyl Esquire.
To do what?
To rock the spot.
With who?
Skinny boy.
And who?
Shot to shot.
Kick it.
Vinyl Esquire. Culture, truth,
And the
music.
human Jack Box.
Vinyl Esquire. Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast that delivers culture, truth, music. Would you join me, please, in welcoming DJ Rip?
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, and my name is DJ Rip, and Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. And without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show the legendary DJ, the legendary artist, 1/3 of the legendary group from Bridgeport, Connecticut, the legendary Skinny Boys. I would like to welcome to Vinyl Esquire, the legendary Superman J.
All right, peoples, how y'all doing?
How you doing, man?
All is well, man. I can't complain. All is well. Right now, we're just enjoying life, and with this pandemic, or should I say, plandemic, that's going on. We're just taking things easy and trying to get back to a safe place, man. So all is good with me and mine. My brother, his Jock, his family. We're all good. We're just hoping the world can stay safe.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this is Vinyl Esquire. This is the DJ podcast, where we uplift the DJ culture and honor our legends. And you are a legendary DJ from a legendary group. So let's get right to the beginning. Let me peel the layers back. Let's start from the beginning with Superman J. Why don't you tell me who or what made you want to be a DJ?
As far as who made me want to be a DJ, this probably goes back to Grandmaster Flash, because I'm sure everyone heard of Grandmaster Flash, but at that time, you look at Flash, he was a part of that, as well as Frankie Crocker, big time. So those are the two that really, really inspired me.
Okay, so what year would you say that you started DJing?
I started DJing back in 1979.
Got you. So
let me say this much. In 78, I was in training by another DJ that was up this way named Kimbo. He went by the name of Grandmaster Bo. So I like to give a lot of props to him because he's the one that helped to just hone my skills.
So was Superman J your first DJ name?
First DJ name was Jimmy J.
Okay.
Superman J came along, let's just say around 1980 when, I was out there basically with my cousins and Star Child and T-Bone. Kimbo is the one which we call Grandmaster Bo. He's the one that honed my skills, but Star Child and T-Bone, them two right there were the ones to bring me to the forefront for people to get to know me.
Got you. Okay. So you would say that you started DJing in 1979,
yes.
And your motivation to become a DJ was Grandmaster Flash, right?
And Frankie Crocker, yes.
And Frankie Crocker, both legends. Okay,
yes.
So you're from Bridgeport, Connecticut, right?
Yes.
So Superman J, why don't you talk to me about the early days in Connecticut? Talk to me about that early hip-hop scene and how did hip-hop affect you in Bridgeport, Connecticut? Talk to me about those early days.
Well, the early days when we first found out about it, as far as myself, my brother, my father lived in the Bronx, New York. He also had an apartment out in Harlem. He lived in the Bronx on Webster Ave and 169th. So when you talk about hip-hop and our first recollection of it, when I tell you epic, because we were onto something before a lot of people up here in Connecticut was onto. You had DJs that were back then in 77, 78, even back further than that. But it was still the disco era. Make no mistake about it, it was still the disco and soul era. Hip-hop really hadn't reached up here for, let's just say, about up until like 77. When you look at after that, the explosion came. I mean, you had my cousins, Star Child and T-Bone. They were onto something just as quick as New York got it. They heard it, and I'm pretty sure they got wind of everything. And, just like most people, they were not just imitating what they heard. They were original about things, but they were doing their thing. And this is like, I can remember back in 78, they were doing their thing. I know Star Child started out back in, I think it was 77, if I'm not mistaken. You're talking about someone that came from Virginia all the way up to this way to move up to Bridgeport, and he started out DJing in New Haven. So,
okay.
When you look at those early days, I mean, it was incredible. You had crews back then called the Kuliak Def Crew. You had Star Child and T-Bone. You had DJ Cook Brown. I could name so many. DJ Shoe Rock. Not DJ, but MC Butchie B.
Wow.
Then you had those from, let's just say, Three the Hard Way. You had ELD before Three the Hard Way came into play. He was with the Kuliak Def Crew. And you also had the LOD crew, which consisted of two brothers from Three the Hard Way with DJ King Tim and DJ Doc Rock.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, we weren't far behind because we're only 1 hour outside of the Bronx. So it wasn't like we're far behind. But me and my brother, I'm pretty sure we got a taste of this thing back in like 77, seeing, vintage block parties. Let me say this much. We had our chance to see the Cold Crush for the first time, and I'm pretty sure that was late 78 going into 79.
Right. Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, I can remember before then Grandmaster Caz being a DJ.
Right, absolutely.
So I always tell people, I said, I had a jump on things as far as to be able to witness this. The mother fellas that I named and crews that I named, they were in it.
Right.
They were deep in it, And then I come from a family that was full of music. I had an uncle who was a gospel singer. My grandfather on my father's side, God rest his soul, Bishop Harrison, he was a gospel singer just as well that made records back in the day. So you look at that, and then us coming up, me and my brother coming up, as far as me, before I even got into DJing, I was playing instruments like the accordion and the keyboard.
Okay.
So music was always in me. It was just, back then DJing to a lot of us is probably just a hobby, just a hobby.
Right. So I want to know the real story behind, the real history behind the Skinny Boys. Because first of all, I'm a DJ. I've been a DJ since 1984.
Yes.
And the first time I heard the Skinny Boys was in, 86.
Yes.
And for some reason, I thought the Skinny Boys was from Chicago, and I don't even know why. Right? And
you're one of many.
So I don't really know if people really know the story behind the Skinny Boys before the record. So give me a brief history of how the Skinny Boys came about before the records, because I want to get to the records, but
yes.
give me the brief history of the Skinny Boys before you made your first record.
Okay. I can remember in 1980 being with Star Child and T-Bone, and then Star Child had his younger brother named John called Little Star, and then we also had his cousin, who was like family to me just as well, was Eric Amato. He called himself DJ Cool Rock. So you had DJ Jimmy J, DJ Star, and DJ Cool Rock. That kind of disbanded, after a while, because when people got to hear me, I kind of became in demand, So people would holler at me, you should be our DJ, you should be our DJ. I kind of, I had a demand. So what happened was, as other groups started to disband, like even the LOD crew, instead of disbanding, they basically, I would say they expanded. And I was part of that expansion, You had myself, you had MC ELD, you had DJ White Flash, you had Triple C, who back then was MC Cool Rap.
Okay.
And then you also had his brother, Boogeyman, who became B Bad Boogie. So to bring it up to speed a little bit more, you had all of us come together, and I was playing at block parties all over the place, between Bridgeport, Stamford, Norwalk, and my name was catching on, Back then, at that time, I went from Jimmy J to Superman J because everyone would always say, man, you do some incredible stuff. I was known for the gimmicks, throwing my mouth down on that mixer with the hands on the turntables, catching that mix behind the back, all these gimmicks that are out right now. Those gimmicks have been way back then. But I also know that even back then, Grandmaster Flash, Frankie Crocker, even to come up to speed a little bit more, Mr. Magic, DJ Mr. Magic from the Juice Crew.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Was, a hot radio commodity who started out on WHBI 105.9 out of Brooklyn.
Right, right.
So you're talking about a whole thing that came up to speed real quick. And after all of us kind of disbanded, then you had myself, you had MC ELD. White Flash was around for a little while until he took off and he joined forces with Cool Rap and Boogeyman. So myself and ELD had picked up my brother, Sean, Shock and Sean.
Right, right.
Sean was just one of the chill out brothers at the time who loved to dress, loved to be chilly chill. When we picked Sean up, he was basically fresh. Him and another brother I'm about to name who was an MC, City O. Those guys used to just chill together, they was like part of the hype, part of the group. So me and Pete brought those two in. Sooner or later, City O kind of phased out. He left the group. And before you know it, let's just say bringing it up to speed, about 1982, we bring in my cousin, the Jock Box. We had heard about Jock with the beatbox and everything else going on. But you're talking about, matter of fact, let me rephrase that. That was 83.
Okay.
Because the Disco 3 had just came out. Now, we all have heard at that time of Dougie Fresh. Some people just found out about him because of movies like Wild Style, or should I say Beat Street. Sorry about that.
Right, absolutely.
Me and my brother knew about Doug because of the popularity back in the day, before the 80s. So now let's speed it back up and go back into, let's just say 83. The Disco 3 come out. We go pick up my cousin Jock because we heard he was doing something incredible. And what do you know? The very first show that the Jock Box performed with us was in Stratford, Connecticut, at the Stratford Roller Rink. You wouldn't believe who was on the bill headlining. It was the Disco 3.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And, you come on and we do our thing because at the time we was a staple group up in Connecticut, not just Bridgeport. We was that staple group up in Connecticut. At that time, we were called the Superior Crush, featuring DJ Superman J and White Flash at the time, before he broke out and left. When I say we were doing the Jock Box back in early 83, and when I tell you, literally, when people see the name, I know we're going to speed up to this, but when they see those names of who wrote what on those albums,
right,
make no mistake about it. We were the Superior Crush at that time, and we wrote many of those records. A guy named Arthur Armstrong, who was a promoter out of the Bronx, him and many others can attest to that. So that's bringing it up to speed with that. Before we became the Skinny Boys, we were still the Superior Crush at the time, and we were playing just about everywhere from Paterson, New Jersey, all the way up to Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay. So when you say you wrote many of those records, what records do you mean that you wrote?
The Jock Box.
Okay, got it.
Ill. Awesome.
Gotcha. You're talking about the Skinny Boys records. Okay, I got you.
Skinny Boys records,
right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Those records at the time, back then they were just known as routines. Routines. We didn't look at them as records because we wasn't on wax. So it was just a routine. We came up with these routines, and they became records later on.
So what made you change your name to the Skinny Boys? Was it inspiration from New York hip-hop and the Fat Boys?
Indeed.
Okay.
Definitely. They were the Fat Boys, and we were skinny. So we said, something? And it was, at that time, it was a time of gimmicks. So everything was gimmicks. I mean, I've heard someone tell me man, I bet you didn't know that they had the fat girls out back then. I said, I never knew that. I said, as deep as I am into hip hop, I never knew that.
That's interesting. So, okay. All right. So let's recap just a little bit. It's 1983 and you guys
Yes.
you're doing routines. You came from a more of like a bigger conglomerate, and it's like you sized down. And now the Skinny Boys are all family. It's yourself, Shock and Sean, which is your brother, and the Human Jock Box, which is your cousin, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're just now coming into your own. You're getting inspired by the Fat Boys. So simultaneously, you're doing the same thing that they're doing. They changed their name from Disco 3 to the Fat Boys, and now
Yes.
you changed your name to the Skinny Boys.
Yes.
Now, how did that affect you in the industry? Did they take you seriously at first, or did they think you were a joke, kind of just mimicking the Fat Boys?
I think people that knew of us, they knew we were serious about this. If you know the name play might have been a play off the Fat Boys and was a gimmick, but when it came to our stage presence, our show presence, they knew we were very serious. It's like we were at a young age, we weren't afraid to play New York City, not at all.
Right.
So you get some people that are in New York that are kind of shook up to play New York City, coming out of from outside of New York. That adds a lot of extra pressure because you got to be dope or you ain't going to make it.
Absolutely.
So when you look at all that coming together, the one thing I say that separated us is that I was a DJ / MC. Jockbox was a beatbox / MC. Shock and Sean was an MC, also known as a hype man. So it wasn't like as if we were the same play as the Fat Boys. The Fat Boys had Cool Rock Ski, my brother, Marky D, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And God, rest in peace, Buff, man. All those brothers, as time went on, we get to know these cats, we realize that these are our hip hop brothers, man. Ain't nothing about it, when people say to us, y'all ever thought about battling the Fat Boys? I said, well, when you become professional, it's not about battling. It's about going out there, doing what you got to do, and giving people what they paid their money for.
Absolutely.
When the people walk away from a show, they want to be able to say, listen, I'll come out to see them cats again and again and again.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that's the beauty of it. And that's the kind of impact that people like the Fat Boys, the Treacherous Three, and you can go back, Grandmaster Flash, the Furious Five, and even more so, one of my favorite groups of all time, the Cold Crush Brothers.
Right.
You look at them, Grand Wizard Theodore and the Fantastic Five, those are two epic groups that I don't really think got the credit that they really deserve when it comes to this hip-hop thing.
Well, I mean, I would agree. And I also believe, those are all great, incredible, iconic groups. And
yes.
I do agree with you that, to some degree, for those who didn't have commercial success with making records,
yes.
I don't believe that they got their proper due. And that's also the reason why I wanted to interview you, because I think you are a part of that elite that didn't get the respect or the success that you
right.
needed, to basically get to that next level. So with that being said, did the Fat Boys treat you any different, or because you guys were so similar, right? Did they treat
mm-hmm.
you any different, or was it all just love?
All love. Even when I talk to, Cool Roski and Marky D to this day, they say, man, it's always been love between us. We didn't look at it like a competition, because at the time we were just all trying to make it. Everyone dreams of success. We had our share of success, probably not to the level that the Fat Boys took it, but I look at it this way. Whether you take it from all those groups that came before us, like I just named, and DJs that came before us, we all had a part in making this hip-hop history.
Right, absolutely.
We all play a part. Even to this day, right now, when you look at some of these new school groups, and the old school may not agree with them and how they do their thing, but at the end of the day, even they play a part in making this hip-hop thing, this genre, what it is today, the biggest genre of music that has ever existed right now.
Absolutely. No question about it. So Jay, why don't you talk to me about how you first started making records? Because we're talking about the early 80s. We're talking about you coming into your own and then becoming the Skinny Boys. You're now opening up for the Fat Boys. Y'all doing shows. It's 83, and here comes 84, and now 1985. Talk to me about how you became, how did you start making music and making real records?
Okay. There was a show that we had coming up at Gulf Street Park in New Haven now. Before I go there, like I said, we played so many different shows and rocked out. Great crowd response. We had a following. So when we went to my cousin Mark Bush, him and his wife Rhonda Bush, and we said, cuz man, you need to really, really come out and check us out, because we knew at the time, he had the finances to be able to back us. So he says, I'm thinking about it. Maybe I'll come out one day. But sooner or later, he comes out. And he comes out to this show at Gulf Street Park. Now, just before that, about a month before that, we also played New Haven at this club called the Melibus Club. Once again, the Fat Boys were there.
Okay.
That's when they became the Fat Boys. They come there. They rock out. We rock out. Now we speed up. Now we're at Gulf Street Park, outdoor. When I tell you we were the headliners there, we're still Superior Crush at the time.
Okay.
I tell my cousin Mark, I said, listen, you need to come see us. Ain't no hype, ain't no bragging, but this is what we do. We take what we do very serious, like anyone else. He comes out to see us, but he sees the crowd that was there. As God be my witness, there had to be about at least 4,000 to 5,000 people at Gulf Street Park. You're talking about an outdoor event, and when we went on that stage, you would have thought we had records out at that time, because we did the jock box, and they just went crazy to the point that they mobbed us. We had to leave the stage with security because people wanted to get to us.
Wow.
When he seen that, Mark was like, man, let's talk. When we get back to Bridgeport, let's talk. So we get to talking. Now, before you know, now we have our first studio date. And you would think that we were seasoned. We go out and we cop the Roland 909 drum machine. We weren't even thinking about sampling. We just wanted to be original.
Okay.
First joint we make is awesome. We make awesome. And the crazy thing about it, at that time, it was myself, my brother Shock and Sean, my cousin Jockbox, and ELD. He's on that first record, awesome. And people were like, man, when that record dropped out, man, that's incredible, man. Really incredible. But ELD, sooner than later, I guess he didn't agree with my cousins managing us and things that went down. He ended up almost overnight, just leaving us. There was no hate there. It was like, okay, he got to do what he got to do. I could respect that. I could honor that. So when you look at the Skinny Boys at that time, that's when we first named ourselves the Skinny Boys, when we had Awesome out on Bush Records.
Right.
Me and him were the ones that started this. So when he left, it was like, okay, Jay, you got to put your business mind together now. The business mind was like, okay, it's all of us minus Pete, minus ELD. I said, listen, y'all, this is what we going to do. Put our heads together, and we going to write these tracks out, the rest of these tracks. I'll make the beats like I've always been doing. Now, not to take any credit away from Mark or Rhonda. They never wrote anything for us. They never produced anything for us. Superman J was the one on that drum machine, the 909. I was very tech savvy. I'm making the beats. Me, Sean, and Jock are the ones writing. Even when it came down to the first record, Awesome. Me and Pete were partners, but I can't say that he had a whole lot in writing. As far as when you give credit, that was me, Sean, and Jock. Make no mistake about it. So
wow, okay.
When he left, with all due respect to him, we were professional enough to know what we had to do. And everything just fell right in place.
Right. Okay, so this is 1985, and you put out your first single. And again,
yes.
this is Family. You said your cousin and his wife, yes. They put a record label together called Bush Records. And
I'm the one that did the logo for the label.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So you put out your first single, Awesome, and the B-side was Skinny Boys, right?
Yes.
So this comes out on Bush Records in 1985, completely independent. This was your first step into the music business, going
Yes.
from routines in the park or routines at clubs to making records, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I understand that these records also made the first album. So your role in the group is you DJ'd, produced, and rhymed, and
Yes.
and then Shock and Sean, your cousin, rhymed, and
Yes.
then the Human Jock Box rhymed and beatbox.
Beatbox.
Is that
Yes.
correct for the group?
Yes.
So your cousins get a lot of writing credit, and they didn't do anything. They just
That was us being young, dumb,
Yes.
wanting to be stars. And I can't say young and dumb. That was us just wanting to be stars and did not realize what the business entailed.
Let me ask you this question. How did you approach making the music? You said you wanted to be original, but
Yes.
and we can break down a few of these records, but
Yes.
but you said Awesome. That's the Rollin' 909 is what you used, right?
Yes.
So was it just your plan to stick it to original rhymes, drums, and scratching and cuts? Was that the approach to making the Skinny Boys music at first?
Yes, because we had to be original because original gets respected. You know, when you are let's just say the second in command to do something, like for instance, you never ever seen a Public Enemy in rhyme form other than them. Now people say, well, yeah, NWA. I said, no, NWA were totally different. Totally different. Two different groups,
Yeah,
you know?
totally different from Public Enemy, no question.
Yes. So we wanted to be original in the sense that when people heard us, they knew who they were listening to. And if we came off and did everything, let's just say, for example, the same way the Fat Boys were doing it, guess what? We'll just be second in command and unnoticed because who gets bigger? Usually it's the originator.
Absolutely.
So when we, remember the Fat Boys had big props on. They had people like Curtis Blow doing tracks, Larry Smith, the legendary Larry Smith, legendary Curtis Blow, and a few others, So
Right. Absolutely.
I said, if we want to make our mark, we got to come into this thing original and we got to hit it right off the bat. We got to hit it. It can't be we're looking for this next time around. No, let's hit it right off the bat. That's why we bought out Awesome. Awesome was a routine that we used to do when we had all four of us together. And when I tell you how the other tracks came into play, let's just say everything fell right into place. Now, before we go any further, I'm not going to sit up here and say that Mark and Rhonda Bush did nothing. They were the financial side. Also, they were the business side, even though there was some dirty business done on their behalf in their favor. But if it wasn't for them handling their business, maybe we may not have had the signing to Warlock or Jive. Now we can go back to whatever you want to go to now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's the segue to the next step. I mean,
Yes.
in 1985, you drop Awesome and Skinny Boys,
Yes.
one single on Bush Records. So
Yes.
then your next single comes out in 1986,
Yes.
and it's called Jockbox, and the flip side is called Unity.
Yes.
This came out on Warlock Records.
Yes,
So now,
Adam Levy.
yeah. So now, talk to me about how you got the deal on Warlock, and talk to me about this particular record. It's now 1986, and we are now into the next phase of the Skinny Boys.
Okay. When we first dropped out Awesome, when you look at that Awesome and the Skinny Boys, the B-side, we were going to UPS to basically mail out hundreds and thousands of records everywhere they needed them. We did that footwork. Me, Mark, Rhonda, Sean, Jock, even ELD when he was with us. Adam Levy happened to notice that record when he was over in London, England. Not sure what he was doing there, but he got in touch with Mark and Rhonda. And from that point on, he said, I like what the guys are doing. I think they're hella great. That's what he used. I think they're hella great. And before you know it, we're signing to Warlock Records. They told us, what was going on. They said there's a guy named Adam Levy, who is the son of Morris Levy, who had groups like Gladys Knight and the Pips, Black Ivory, and the list goes on.
Right.
And now we're signed to Warlock. We drop out the Jock Box.
Which is another routine that you had.
When I tell you, that routine goes back to 1983.
Wow.
We dropped the Jock Box. Even back then, we were playing that Casio keyboard. I was playing the Casio keyboard over top of that.
Okay, so hold on. So, because I was going to ask you about the record. So unlike the Fat Boys or any other individual beatboxer at the time, right?
Big respect to Dougie Fresh, the originator.
Yes. So Dougie Fresh's records, aside from Lottie Dottie, most of them had drum machines attached to the records, right?
Right.
Now Lottie Dottie was just beatboxing and Slick Rick, right?
Yes.
So when you look at the Fat Boys, okay, a lot of their records were fully produced tracks by Larry Smith, Curtis Blow, and then Buff, the human beatbox would, beatbox on top of them. But there was a few songs, that was just him beatboxing and Kuroksky and Prince Marky D. Rhyme and a little bit of cutting. But the human jock box, this song was beatboxing, cutting, you all rhyming, and then this keyboard playing throughout the whole record.
Yes.
So now you're saying that you used to do that same thing live.
Live.
So what made you play the keyboard on top of him beatboxing to create the human jock box?
Do you remember a joint? It was by ESG, and this was an old break beat.
Absolutely.
Remember that joint? Boom, boom, boom.
Yes,
you
sir.
hear that? That's a bass line.
Yep.
I said, I'm going to take this bass line and I'm going to pitch this thing up. That is going to be what I called, that's going to be that irritating noise. Now, when they hear this under the jock box and us rhyming, that's going to get them. I knew it from the start when we first started doing it as a routine. I seen how the crowd reacted when we did it as amateurs. Yes. I said, now, when they hear this thing on wax, fully mastered, it's going to take the industry by storm. And when I say it took the industry by storm, because everyone was like, what was that noise in the background?
Right, right.
And is Jock Box really that powerful, or is there effects? I said, no effects. No effects. When you hear him live. That skinny cousin of mine, that bass you hear, that's natural. That bass is natural. And people say, well, Buff got some bass too. I said, yeah. I said, but usually when you see something heavy, someone heavier, you expect that. When you see someone skinny, you don't expect all that to come out of him.
Right, right. Absolutely.
I said, so he brought that to the table. And when I said we should put the keyboard behind it, and they were like, no, I said, listen, if we don't, guess what? We're just another Fat Boys.
Well, At that time, we're just another Disco 3. Right, right. Well, that was why I asked you, what was your thought process behind doing that record like that? I mean, it's incredible. Yes. And on top of that, and I know this interview is about you, Superman J, the DJ of the Skinny Boys.
Yes.
But it's always interesting to find out the real history behind the human jock box, because there was a lot of similarities between him and the human beatbox.
Mm-hmm.
But also, when people start naming great beatboxers in the history of hip-hop, they very seldom mention Jock Box name and Ready Rock C. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
I think there's when you say that, I think they know the truth. They know the truth, but they just don't like to give the shine. But guess what? I always told Jock, don't look for no one to give you no shine. Take that shine.
Absolutely.
Let them know what separates you from the rest.
And to make it so bad, Jay, I don't mean to cut you off, but Jock wasn't a slouch on the mic either. You know what I mean?
No, talented.
Yeah, he was nice on the mic as well. And so were you. And see, that's the interesting, that's the incredible dynamic of the Skinny Boys. It was it was like you almost all did everything, and and it came out in the music. So so let's talk a little bit more about the music. So so now you're on your next single, 1986. You get the deal with Warlock, right?
Yes.
So here comes Jock Box and Unity. This is the single. So now the debut album was called Weightless.
Weightless, that's right.
Okay, and it was on Warlock Records, and it became a classic to me.
Thank you. We hear that all the time. Thank you.
There's a record on the album. I have a story, my own personal story about this record, and I'll share it with you, but I want to hear your story because this is your story. There's a song on the album called Rip the Cut.
Yes.
And this song is basically dedicated to Superman J, the DJ, right?
Yes.
Talk to me about Rip the Cut. Talk to me about how you approached it, why y'all did the record. I even want to know what you were scratching in the record. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, to get to the beginning of it, I know you heard of Billy Squire, Big Beat.
Of course.
I approached that beat, with that type of drum sound. But instead of having a snare, I said, well, let's tune that clap all the way down and just double it up so when you hear it, you hear that boom, 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 boom. Now, that's the start of it. I said, how can we make this right here different besides just the lyrics? And just that quick, I kid you not, I think it took me about roughly a half an hour to make that beat, to bring it all together. All Sean and Jock had to do was come in and we all write to it, and that's it. What made that track was just not the beat. When people heard the scratch was from Ozzy Osbourne, his album The Hills Have Eyes, or whatever I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And if you heard the actual scratch, just like if you heard the scratch from Feed Us the Beat before we even go there,
right,
you would never know where these scratches came from because it's not so wide open. I took a little piece and said, there it is. They said, what is that? I said, just a small guitar riff. That's going to make it us just as well. When we start adding things in that people aren't used to hearing, especially coming from a hip hop record. So I added in that record. All I did was basically I elongated that scratch, whereas you don't hear it being stopped. It just sounds like if I played the record, you'd be like, I didn't hear the part where you scratched. Yeah, because it passes by that quick. And that's what brought that whole record together, just wanting not so much a rock and roll feel, but a different feel.
Gotcha.
That's what it was all about, being different and being original.
So was the record meant to be for you, like a DJ, dedicated DJ record?
Sean and Jock came up with that concept, and Mark and Rhonda had agreed on it. They said, you need something to really, really bring out Jay. So as we started putting words together, and you hear Jockbox, when I bust on the stage, I bust in the rage to all the suckers that are standing. And you hear song, days. This cut sound deaf with rhythm and bass. The skinny boys are here to crush the place. And it goes all the way on until you hear, rip the cut. Well, rip the cut. Then you hear Sean coming. Well, I'm the great dominator, Mike. You know what I'm saying? He goes into it.
Right, absolutely.
And everyone says, man, this song is, when people heard it, they said, man, even Chuck Chillout, he said, man, this record and the record that's also on Unity, it's different levels, but it's so, that Rip the Cut is so fucking hard.
Absolutely.
So we thrived on being different, but we also thrived on never cursing in a record because we wanted to be comfortable with, if we can't say it in front of our parents, then ain't no need to say when we're not around them. You know, there has to be a little respect involved in what you're doing, because remember, it's not just the new jacks that are listening to you right now. It's those that came before you, all those R&B people and them soul people that came before you. They're listening and they're saying, okay, there's no cursing.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And the album was dope, and there's a lot of good records on the album. My two favorites are Jockbox and Rip the Cut.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave me your story. Now I'm going to give you mine. So My name is DJ Rip, okay? And
indeed.
And the reason why my name is DJ Rip is because of this song. So, you know,
wow.
I would say about 80, let me see, that record came out in 86, right?
86. Hold on. First of all, before you go forward, props to you, man. Appreciate that. We thrive on being an inspiration because I think that anyone and everyone is an inspiration to someone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, so we appreciate that, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And my DJ inspirations from you know, that standpoint at that time was Jam Master Jay, Mix Master Ice, the Rip the Cut record, and then my brother DJ Bobcat. Now, of course, Flash inspired, you know, the hip hop side of me.
Yes, but him and Theodore.
Yes, sir. But in 84,
Kool Herc, you can't forget the Godfather, the father of this right here, Kool Herc.
Absolutely. But in 84, I bought Mixmaster Ice. I bought UTFO's first album, Leader of the Pack. Okay.
Oh,
that was
awesome.
that was the first album that I purchased. And so I started DJing, playing with it in 84, 85.
Yes.
85, I'm a DJ, but I didn't have no name. You know,
Right.
I went by abbreviated version of my government name, right?
Okay.
So one day I'm in my mother's basement. And, you know, of course, at that point, we're all doing everything. You know, I'm trying to b-boy. I wasn't that good at that. I tried to beatbox. I was okay. So I tried to do graffiti, and I was decent at it. I could draw good. I was doing tags and everything.
You found your niche.
Yes, but I was best at DJing. So long story short, your record comes out. And
Yep.
Waitlist, that is. And
Yes.
and I'm practicing, and it just so happens that you say rip the cut right on the one, right. So I'm in my mother's basement practicing, and I'm cutting rip, you know, rip the cut.
Yes.
So I stop and I take a spray paint can and I tag rip the cut on my mother's basement wall in my bedroom.
Wow. I would have loved to see a picture of that.
Well, I'm gonna send you a picture of it. Now watch.
Oh wow. Yes.
Now, by the way, I'm in the Midwest, okay?
Right.
So I tag Rip the Cut, and I'm practicing, and I'm using your record as practice. So a guy comes down who I was working with, and actually my MC at the time was cool,
Right.
was cool with him. He brought him over, and his name was Disco D. And
Okay.
he's watching me practice, and I'm cutting. He's looking at the wall, and he looks at me, and he goes, man, you should call yourself DJ Rip.
Wow.
It sounds like you're ripping the record. You wrote rip the cut on the wall, and you're scratching your name, even though that wasn't my name. So at that point, I looked at the record, I looked at the wall, and I said, I'm DJ Rip. So I became DJ Rip scratching your record. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So that's my story.
That's incredible, man, because once again, it's not just the inspiration that I was to you and that we were to you. It's more so of how music, how it gets around 360.
Absolutely, man. We were in the Midwest. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
So we're in the Midwest.
Deep in the sticks.
Right. I mean, we're in the middle, literally the middle of the country, right?
Yes.
And but the beautiful thing about that is we were getting, it was a gumbo. We were getting music from everywhere. So we loved and appreciated all of it. So that's why your first album was just dope to us. You know what I mean? You were beatboxing, you were rhyming, you were cutting, scratching. It was the drums, it was everything, and it was just an extension of the Fat Boys to us. You know what I mean? So in saying all that, salute to you. Thank you for making those records. It definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting.
No question.
Without support, I always said this, man. I don't care who we are. Without support, ain't none of us shit. Just stars in our top drawer.
Right.
Ain't none of us. And I hate to be that vulgar about it.
Right.
But it's just, it's just being real. Without support, without fan support, without support, period. I don't care if it's support just from home. None of us are nothing.
Let's get to some more of your classics, because so we're coming off the first album, Waitlist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is your first album on Warlock, and you had 3 albums. So let's talk about the second album. So now you are you're getting ready to release your second album, and it's called Skinny and Proud. And your third album, Skinny, They Can't Get Enough. Also, you now have a deal with Jive RCA, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about how you got the deal on Jive coming off of Warlock Records, right? So you do one single on Bush Records, you do one full album on Warlock, and then now your second and third album comes out on Jive RCA. Now you have a major deal, videos, and the whole 9. So now talk to me about the second album, Skinny and Proud, and the third album, Skinny They Can't Get Enough, on Jive RCA.
To start with that whole situation, Mark and Rhonda came into us when we were getting ready to work on that second album, and they said, you guys just got signed to Jive. Just out of the blue. We knew nothing about it. We were getting ready to do our second album on Warlock. Instead, it became the second album, but the first on Jive, and we really and truly did not want to leave Warlock Records because Adam Levy told us, he said, "Yous are my number one group right now." And remember, he had the Jungle Brothers also, who was dope. Still are dope.
Right, absolutely.
He had quite a few others. I think someone said that Janet Jackson's label also was a spinoff off of Warlock, one of her albums.
Wow.
So I was more so in tune to what we were doing that when Mark and Rhonda came to us and they said, we're signed to Jive, it kind of upset me, Sean and Jock, because we had the attention over there. Now, imagine this. Jive had signed us, KRS-One, Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, Steady B, also Millie Jackson, Samantha Fox. They already had Billy Ocean. But when you look at it from the other talent side, like hip-hop, they signed these other great talents all like in a, let's just say, a domino effect. And the one thing I worried about over there was getting the attention that we needed to push us forward. So now we're signed to Jive. We basically fall into line. No discrepancies. We just said, hey, it's business. We didn't want it, but this is what it is. We start working on that second album. The title, Skinny and Proud, was important because that was the first joint that we worked on. We worked on Skinny and Proud. And the beauty behind that was, once again, we stayed original. We didn't veer off because sampling was big. It was in.
Right, absolutely.
We stayed original, and we said, we got to do this the way we do things. So now Skinny and Proud comes out. People are like, man, use cats, man, y'all are just exploding. But we knew also that we were bunched up with a whole bunch of other groups, dope groups. Jive, I'll say this much, we had a dope roster over there at Jive, including Houdini, who was also part of that Jive. Let me not forget, in the midst of all that, Mo D was signed just as well, Cool Mo D.
Absolutely.
So you factor that in, and the first person I heard say, I'm not even getting the attention, was KRS-One.
Okay.
So we said, we said to ourselves, well, let's go out and make them give us attention. Let's make some dope music. That's what's going to happen. We're going to make them give us some attention. So whereas we knew being there, our career was kind of still underground. You know, that's where we got our props at in the streets, underground.
Right.
It wasn't like they made us a household name, even though they did make us a household name, but we weren't Fat Boy's household name. People knew who we were. We weren't, as they call it, they became the group. We weren't Jazzy Jeff Fresh Prince household name. But the Skinny Boys were still there in the midst. KRS-One was still there in the midst. So when you look at that second album, once again, everything had to come together. And what do? We said, let's make a Rip the Cut Part 2. When Jive heard it, that's at that time we got into sampling. And I said, but let's take them back to the funk age. So we use and Rip the Cut Part 2, Parliament, Funkadelic.
Right, absolutely.
It's like people loved it, but I said we still have to stay in our lane, not get too far out. So we did that album. That album came across pretty dope, but we still know that it didn't outdo Weightless. The thing about Weightless was, before I keep going, when we left Warlock, Adam Levy said, I would love to have kept y'all. Y'all were only 40,000 albums away from gold.
Wow. Okay.
And my thing was, he said, when y'all left, I wasn't going to continue to promote that album and make Jive rich.
Right. Absolutely.
Because y'all already had left. So we were like, man, you should have still promoted it. That's us, but not the business side. We're just thinking for ourselves. As the second album went on, we were already in mode for our third album because we had actually signed the contract with Jive for 3 albums. Now we have They Can't Get Enough. To me, They Can't Get Enough was an album of more freedom for us to do what we wanted to do, and we got into the sampling game. Mark and Rhonda was kind of against this, against that, but I said, well, you have to grow. You know,
right,
I don't care what it is. I don't care if you work a 9 to 5. You want growth. I said, I think we did the original side of us. Now it's time for people to hear something different. Now, even with Skinny and Proud, it was a record we also did called I Won't Stop. I Won't Stop. Man, people heard that. They were like, man, y'all cats are just super hard. everything is just hard about y'all. I said, well, we like to bring different things along. We also did a jazz record. It was called Something from the Past. That was our comical side of things, of, you know, our comical side of us just basically going out and saying, you know, something we just can't give someone something just to ice grill, but we got to give them something to laugh at also.
Right, absolutely.
Our comical side, that's us. Everyone, I don't care who you are, I don't care how hard you are, we all have a funny side to us. That was our funny side. Now, speeding up to that third and final album, even though we were supposed to have 3, the last album, They Can't Get Enough, they said, you know something? We go in there to the studio. The very first record that we worked on was called Get Pepped. Way before Rob Bass, and no disrespect to him because music is music. Way before he dropped out and him and Easy Rock dropped out, It Takes Two.
Right.
Get Pepped, that sample we already had. The irritating part of Get Pepped, I don't know if you actually listen to that record, but you can, and you hear the boom, 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 boom. In the midst of all that, I'm scratching Pussyfooter.
Right.
You know, you had that in it, but what people always ask about is, what's that? You always come up with these crazy weird sounds. What was that weird sound in Get Pepped? I said, it was just some type of space age sound that at that time I got from the emulator, because most of that album was SB12, SB1200, things of that nature. You know, those 2 drum machines.
Right, absolutely.
And you look at also going back to the first album. I don't know how important this is for you to hear. Unity was made with a drum machine called the Sequential Circuits. That's how I got the backwards sound and everything else on that. A lot of people didn't hear it. A lot of people didn't hear that, but I always dug into working with different machines.
Right, absolutely.
So when you look at it, you say, well, what's the difference between the SP12 and the 1200? I said the 1200 had the disk drive.
Right.
More sampling space.
Absolutely. You could do more with it.
Until this day, you know, you look at, to this day, Easy Mo B still works with that thing.
Absolutely.
So, to show you how dangerous that, this was before Akai comes out with the MPC, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like you look at all these different machines I was working with on the last album, and not to leave out, we also had the other sampling, a rack mount, which was called the S900. So we was using a lot of that, and we also had some input. We had my cousin Flavor Flav come in and help out. He helped me out with Get Pepped, him and Chuck Chill Out.
Okay, so
DJ Chuck Chill Out.
Right. So hold on, you're just gonna throw that out there that he's your cousin. So
Yes.
so your family clearly is vast musically and well connected, especially in the hip hop world. I mean, the Skinny Boys is your cousin and your brother, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and the people who put you out were your other cousins, and now you're telling me Flavor Flav is related to you.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. So
It's, you know, we never used. People say, why didn't you use that to your advantage? I said, well, we came out before Flavor. I said, our very first interview in Long Island was Professor Griff and Chuck D and them interviewing us. So that's how group that goes. At that time, we didn't know we were related.
Wow. And you talking
know
about
what I'm saying?
you talking about the Spectrum City, the college radio station time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's incredible. So Jay, okay, so 3 albums total. 1 on Warlock, 2 on Jive, right?
And there was supposed to be one more. But discrepancies got involved, and management and us was at war.
So tell me what stopped everything. What did the group break up, the label go bad? What stopped the albums, the music, and what happened to the Skinny Boys?
The group always stayed together. We're still together to this day.
Okay.
We still do shows. The thing is, my cousins who managed us, they had a take-all approach. Yeah, we were young, immature, young, dumb, whatever you want to call it, young, inexperienced. And we didn't look at the whole situation of how the money was being divvied up. We knew something was going on.
Right.
But with legal advice that we had sought from the second album, we had sought out some legal advice. We knew things were going on. We knew things weren't right because we're getting taxed on money we're not even seeing. We're literally being taxed of money we're not even seeing. When Jive, we get to Jive, and Barry Weiss tells us on that second album, he says, hey guys, y'all can go pick out some cars, man. I'm out there, I'm picking out the Mercedes-Benz 500. Jock's out there, he picks out a Cadillac. Jock and Sean picks out the Jag. The cars never materialized, but Mark and Rhonda had cars from that.
Right, got you.
And we're like, well, where's our cars? When we get back to Jive to go back in the studio, Barry Weiss, who was the president of Jive, and Paul Katz were saying, how's the cars, guys? I was like, we didn't get no cars. So what do you mean you didn't get no cars? And they literally show us checks that had already been cashed. Now, the one thing that Mark and Rhonda had, and I know you hear this often, power of attorney.
Right.
We didn't know nothing about that. So they were able to go and cash those checks that were for us. So we're making money on the shows. But at the same time, when it comes down to royalties, yeah, we know Jive was fucking us. Excuse my expression.
Right.
Because that happens to everyone. You know, they messed over Tribe, KRS-One. I mean, the list goes on.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, Jazzy Jeff and them, they were getting that paper. But they were probably one of who knows how many more. You know, I'm pretty sure Millie Jackson got her money because she was seasoned. She was a seasoned vet. Billy Ocean.
Right.
You know,
right.
I hate to say it.
You're a younger artist. Right, absolutely.
Yes. Samantha Fox, I'm pretty sure she got hers. And it's not so much of a colored thing, but I know that white artists got a pass because they were on that mainstream just as well. You know, when you look at hip hop, and you being involved in it, and yourself, you look at hip hop it shows the griminess of the industry when you talk about business-wise.
Absolutely. I mean, hip hop comes from the streets, so
yes,
it's like they purposely treat us all like we're naive and stupid because we're from the streets and uneducated, so they just don't tell you, and they steal it all. So would you say that ultimately is what stopped everything, was just bad business? You guys stopped recording and putting out music, right?
Mark and Rondo wanted to go. They said it's time to go back and get this third album done, y'all, which was our fourth overall. We said nothing's being done now. We also had to take a trip over to London, England for that third album because they wanted to mix it over at Battery Studios. There was an engineer there. You probably might see him on a lot of those records back then called his engineer named Brian Chuck New. Mm-hmm. Cool-ass white dude.
Yeah.
When they asked Brian Chuck New about who was doing what, Brian Chuck New said, well, Mark has said, let's get this shit done. This is one session. Let's get this shit done, man. Why y'all messing around? We weren't messing around. We just felt like, listen, this is us doing this right. Let us do what we do. So while he's busy saying, well, man, we going to get these beats tracked, I said, well, go on, track the beats. Track them beats. Me, Sean, and Jock left and went back to the hotel in Wembley. We go back and we come back hours later, and we said to Brian Chuck New, how far y'all got, y'all? Y'all got most everything tracked? He looked at us and said, we ain't got nothing tracked. I said, okay, let's get to work, man.
Wow.
I go in there, hook those machines up, and everything is getting tracked. Beats being made on the fly. Sean and Jock is over there writing while I'm making beats. I write. I hand them the beat, the bass of it. They start writing. They ask me, what do you think about this? And I'm like, okay, we'll throw this right here. When I tell you, Jive was wondering what took so long, and Brian Chuck New said, well, I'm looking at these album credits for the last album, and guess what? The people that you think are doing this work, the people that signed these guys to this label, they ain't doing the work. These guys do their own work.
Right.
They write, produce, and everything. So, like I said, that's what went on for that third album. And we said, after that, we went to Barry Weiss and told him, listen, man, until we see money, because we had already went through the courts. Our lawyer, Steve Capico, he's a retired lawyer. He had Janet Jackson. He had all the big heavyweights. Anybody who was a heavyweight, he had them.
Okay.
He took this case on based on the strength of what was going on. He said, I hate to see these type of cases. He said, now, don't get me wrong, I could win it, but what are you looking for? And there was some discrepancy because I said, we want to be free from this contract. Sean agreed. He said, I want to be free. But Jock said, yeah, we want our money too. And I said, cuz I would love to have our money. But now you're looking at litigation, and that's years down the line. That money may not even be there. So even in the midst of going through all that, what happened was we went through litigation. We couldn't do anything. So we refused to even record the third album on Jive. We refused to record it because we said, listen, we're not slaves.
Right.
We weren't meant to be treated this way. You know, we're still around here, you know, taking the bus and cabs while these two right here are driving around in brand new whips. Something wrong.
And you're making all the music. That's incredible.
And we're making all the music.
Wow.
We're writing all the lyrics. So that's where everything came in, and we said we needed a break mentally from this whole thing.
Right, and that's what shut it all down.
We had a chance. Jive, you know, Barry Weiss had told us, when you guys are ready, let us know. We'll be here waiting. But in the midst, when you hear groups that they sign like Tribe Called Quest, they're into their second album, third album, whatever it was, and they're like, you hear them saying, the street folks are shady. That just brings you back to like, damn, we ain't the only ones. Thank God.
Absolutely.
So we just said, look, you know, we are content. Don't get me wrong, I love music, and I've always stayed into music. But we were content with what we contributed to this industry and people knowing who the hell we are. You know, it was more important than continuing to do this, and you still don't, you know the business, but not fully enough to be out there handling your own. So it's not so much of a let's smash Mark and Rhonda Bush. No, it's just what it is.
Right. And to me, I respect that because you did make an impact on hip hop, and you are a part of hip hop history. You made a few classic records. You know, to me, I mean, I just got to be honest with you. I like the Skinny Boys on Jive, but I love the Skinny Boys on Warlock. You know what I mean? I loved the Skinny Boys when you were independent and raw. And it was like when you finally got that major deal, things just didn't seem the same. It wasn't whack. It just didn't seem the same. I liked it, but I mean, I got to be honest, and I think you agree. You know,
we respect honesty.
Yeah, I mean, I think you even liked your own music, you know, a little bit better. You know what I mean? And look, and look what happens. You know what I mean? You know, you guys end up leaving the business based off of bad business, which is unfortunate. But let's fast forward. Let's come into something a little more recently because things seem to come full circle, right? So a little more recently, your classic song, Jockbox, ends up on the Comedy Central show, The Workaholics.
Yes.
Talk to me really quickly about how that happened.
That Workaholics came along. Don't get me wrong. The Bushes made the deal, but we quickly said, no, we're recouping this money. Our attorney took care of things, and he took care of things to the point that he said, no more. No more is going on. So now, before even Workaholics, before that fight, we had to go fight for the funds that came from Grumpy Old Men, the first Grumpy Old Men, where our record, They Can't Get Enough, is on there.
Wow, okay.
It has a good part on there. There's also a movie called True Romance with Christian Slater and the other chick that starred with him. She passed away.
Right.
Our music is in there, right along with the video.
Wow.
So we had to fight for these things. I mean, when you see the shadiness that it keeps going on, and you say, "Damn, this is my family," they don't want us to have shit. So it's time for us to go take it. And it's sad, but you know, don't get me wrong. Like I said, this is not a bash, Mark and Rhonda. It's just what it is. And don't get me wrong, we don't like what they did, but we far from hate them. I don't ever want to feel like I hate someone.
Right.
Far from hate them. At the end of the day, they're still our family. Even, you know, Chuck Chill Out, very good friend of ours. Chuck is like family. So when you look at that, even him, he said, man, y'all need to chill this out, man. You know, Heavy D and people like Andre Harrell went through these things. I said, yeah, but everyone goes through different things. And you got to let us come around when we come around, Chuck. You know, it can't be come around because you or anybody else wants to piece this thing out. You know, there has to be respect from them because we went through it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I'm sure, I'm sure Chuck is just coming from the perspective of he just wants to see that good and quality hip hop.
That's what he wanted. That's what he wanted.
He just wants to see y'all perform that music and just
Yes.
put out more records. So, and the ironic thing is that through all of that, it's like these television shows and movies, you know, kind of kept the Skinny Boys alive in a weird way. So what has kept you busy over all of these years? Do you still DJ? Do you still work with the group? So what's kept you busy?
Me, Sean, and Jock still do shows here and there, spot dates. Over the years, what's kept us busy? Something more respectful than the music industry, being a parent.
Right, absolutely.
Recently, coming into, let's just say, the month of May 3rd, I became a grandfather for the first time.
Very nice.
And what's special about that is because my grandchild, Cairo, he was born in this COVID-19 thing, which was scary and still is scary.
Right.
So we're just doing everything we can to keep him safe, as well as, what the other thing is becoming a parent. I have 3 sons, oldest being, his name is Cassius. The middle child name is Jabril. The youngest child name is Ahmad. Cassius is 29. Jabril will be soon to be 24. Ahmad is soon to be 19. Sean has 3 kids. He has the only girl. Her name is Najwa. She's 12 years old. And he has his middle son, Saeed. Saeed is 13 years old. And you have Wazir. Wazir just turned 18. When you look at how far we've come and how focused we continue to be, just as citizens, just as parents, as people in general,
Right.
We attribute a lot of that to God.
Yes, sir.
Because at the end of the day, I don't care what you say, we always say Allah is the greatest, God is the greatest. Everything starts and ends with God. None of us do nothing on our own.
Right.
We don't wake up on our own. We can say, oh, well, the alarm clock woke me up. No, the Skinny Boys know what woke them up. Also, Jock had a daughter named Maya, and he's soon to be a grandfather because he also has, is having a baby.
Wow, okay.
And he also has his youngest daughter. When you look at Remy, she's the youngest. Those 2 are the only girls between our 3 families, the only 2 girls, Najwa and Remy. And I mean, only 3 girls, Najwa, Remy, and Maya. All the rest are boys. So people say to us, what's the next chapter for y'all? I said, next chapter will never be, don't get me wrong, we love music. The next chapter is getting y'all to the next chapter as kids.
Well, my next question was, and I'll just comment it like this: it sounds like the Skinny Boys grew to men, and you're dealing with real life, which is incredible. Congratulations on all of that. So what is the future for the Skinny Boys and Superman J?
We'll still continue to be on the road doing shows. We'll continue, as far as me, Superman J, Shock and Sean, more so. We'll continue to be in that studio cooking up things. There's I'll never say never. Let me say that much. I'll never say never, but we always keep ourselves sharp when it comes to this thing called hip hop. Right. Jock now lives in Delaware, which is not far. It's about 4 hours from us. But Jock is more, I guess with the industry, everything that happened, and him being the youngest, it kind of did a lot of damage to him. He still beatbox. He still go.
Right.
But it did a lot of damage to him.
Right.
And as his older cousins, it's only right for us to keep him in the realm of things, in the midst of everything. Keep him in the cut, because all of us together made it.
Absolutely.
All of us, and we never looked for individual success. I mean, when you talk about, you name people like UTFO, you look at the DJ side, Mixmaster Ice, a beast.
Right.
You look at Marley Marr from that Juice Crew, a beast.
Absolutely.
I can go on, Grand Wizard Theodore, Grandmaster Flash, DJ Tony Tone, Charlie Chase, the list goes on from beginning to end. Beast. When you look at the MCs from beginning to end, Beast, even these youngsters, what I love about today's era right now is that there's a positive and a negative. These young cats have their business minds together.
Right, for sure.
What I don't like is there's still a lot of disrespect, even more so for women. You calling women bitches, hoes, and this and that, and you don't realize you come from a woman. I don't care what damn color she is. You come from a woman.
Right. No question. No question.
So if you calling these women bees and hoes on wax, just know one thing. If you're gonna put it that way, a bitch had you, a hoe had you. So if you calling these women this, and that, guess what? Your mother, your grandmother, your sister, your daughter, your aunts, those are all hoes too. And if you want to look at it from that perspective, show some respect for who nurtured you.
No question. And speaking of, I mean, you're totally right, 100%. And I just wish that there was more balance in hip hop now. I wish some of the old, just the way the old beliefs and some of the old theologies, I just wish was still here on the mainstream side, so the youngins can balance out the music and they can just have more variety. But, speaking about respect and, a legacy, right? Do you feel that the Skinny Boys, the Human Jock Box, Superman J, do you believe that you get your due respect from what you gave to hip hop? Do you feel like you get, what, just that nod for your contributions for what you did for the culture?
100% yes. We hear it coming from a lot of our comrades, man.
Wonderful.
A lot of our comrades.
Wonderful.
I mean, when you talk about that, you look at people like you just named, Mixmaster Ice. We just seen him at the last summer at the Ralph McDaniels Video Music Box cookout.
Yes, sir.
They had the big show out there. So you have them, nice and smooth. All of us, all the greats, man, and so on. All our comrades, they always show respect to us. And the one thing I regret about this whole situation is that other than us, and then you have, God rest his soul, a good friend of ours, Steezo, that passed away.
Yes. Rest in peace.
Steezo's from New Haven, Connecticut.
Right.
We're from Bridgeport, but before Steezo came into play, for a long time, he was dancing for EPMD. We were the only ones out of Connecticut. And I said, you kind of get that sense of you feel kind of lonely being the only ones. But everyone, like you said, people thinking we were from Chicago. Many New Yorkers thought we were from New York because my father lived in the Bronx just as well.
Right.
He lived in Harlem. So, and we were always there at everything. It can be the Apollo one night. We were everywhere. Latin Quarters, Union Square, the World, the Red Parrot. We were everywhere that was popping, everywhere that was happening. The Skinny Boys were there. So we made sure that we kept our name afloat. And to this day, that name stays afloat and people show respect, man. And I attribute that to the fact that not just musically, but we've always showed respect to others.
Yes. And
always. It may not be our cup of tea what they're doing, but at the end of the day, you have to respect it because just like you worked hard, they worked hard at whatever they did. Nothing comes free.
Absolutely.
Your DJing came from hard work.
No question. So salute to you and the Skinny Boys for everything.
Salute to yourself, brother. Yep.
For everything that you did and accomplished. So, what new projects are you personally working on? I understand that there's a Skinny Boys film in the works. Talk to me.
There's a documentary, and right now there's some names that are bouncing off right now. People are saying it's the Weight Gain documentary, and they say, what's that got to do with the actual weight gain? I said, no, it's about how you came from one level to another. And I said, but it's all about our story. We have a lot of guest people coming into play that's going to be in this. Dana Dane, Phony Crush, DJ Chuck Chill Out, a few of the others. White Flash, he'll be in it just as well. DJ White Flash, respect due to him.
Yes, sir.
There's going to be quite a few people speaking in it, Nice. And it's also going to be us. And then we also, I'm also working on, getting my son further along in this business. His name is Supreme Ali. He's got an album dropping in the next month or two. And he's all over SoundCloud. You can find him on Supreme, I think 9056, or just put in Supreme Ali. He has a a album out there on SoundCloud right now that you might want to check out. It's a dope project. It's called Sunset Red.
Okay, very
And
nice.
I tell you, he's ready. I mean, and then the main thing is just, like I tell people, enjoy what you do for as long as you do it and continue to enjoy it, because this is what we do. We enjoy what we did, and we enjoy what everyone else is helping to bring to this legacy of hip-hop.
Absolutely. And you know the music will live on because you made classic records, no question. So Superman J, before we get out of here, can you give me quickly one classic Skinny Boy story from your history? Something people may not know about the Skinny Boys. Anything, just one classic story from the Skinny Boys hip-hop history.
Okay, this is at the time we're in Chicago. Heavy D had already came out, so we're on the road every now and then, pretty often with Heavy D. Fun, man, God rest his soul, man. God rest Heavy soul, man.
Absolutely. Rest in peace, Heavy D.
Yes, and this was crazy because we're going, before the show started, we're going to a autograph signing. So we get there, we do the autograph signing. Now comes showtime. We're out here getting ready to do the show. Now, Heavy didn't have no gold chains. Me, Sean, and Jock, we go on stage. We were like about, I think it might have been the 5th group to go on, something like that. So Heavy D comes on right after us as we're coming off the stage. And Hev is like, man, your cast is dope. Dope. I said, thanks, Hev, man. You dope, man. I'm really giving it to you, man. Your cast is dope. So he said, man, y'all got the talent. You got the gizzy. I ain't even got no gizzy. So he says, man, would y'all mind if I borrow some of that gizzy? Said, man, Hev here, take the chain, man. Hev said, I need all 3 of them because I'm a big dude. So he gets out there on stage, and you know when you have one of those big fat ropes and you're leaning over, all you see is the rope swinging. Heavy whole show was a little bit of dancing, but a whole lot of bending over because he wanted everyone to see that gizzy.
Wow.
And he said, okay, from what I hear, we're playing Dayton, Ohio next. In the next coming days, I'm going to need that gizzy again. and God rest his soul, man, because when I tell people, Heavy had a heart of gold, man. I mean, just everything about him. It's like you can look at that movie, New Jersey Drive, when he gets real critical about something, and he says, don't F with my groove. That's the mad side of Heavy that you don't want to hear.
Right.
So I've always said that was one of my 100 grand. Props to him, Dana Dane, the late Jam Master J, man, who basically, man, he helped to put our name out there in a big way because he would always be like, we hanging out in New York, Skinny Boys in the house. And I'm like, Superman J, and he's like, Jam Master J, how could it get better?
Right.
And I'm like, to me, I've always seen, when you look at DJs, I've always seen, and there's a lot of greats out there, Jazzy Jeff, Cat Money, another good brother, man.
Yes, sir.
Cash Money, these are Philly boys. DJ Jazzy J, from the Soul Sonic Force. I mean, but I would say live performance-wise, Jam Master J had to be one of the most accurate live performers ever.
Hands down. No question about it.
Yes.
He was so precise. And if you listen to their music, especially Peter Piper, if you listen to how he mixed Mardi Gras with those drums, it was perfect. So no question about it. Hands down, Jam Master J is one of the greatest. Salute and rest in peace. And everyone who you mentioned is a legend.
Yes. We come from an era of many of us legends. Even yourself, look at yourself as legendary, because at the end of the day, where you started and where you are right now,
right,
that's movement.
No question.
That's movement.
Thank you. No doubt about it. And what's incredible, man, Jay, is that story. Heavy D, one man is borrowing the whole group's gold on tour.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
That's funny.
Oh, man, he's like I said, man, God bless him. Fife Dog, man. Fife Dog used to come down to Connecticut just to hang out with the Jock Box. Him, Q-Tip, also mainly Jerobi.
Right.
Used to come down here, and even Biz. Biz used to come down here. Joe Ski Love. Let me name, there's quite a few people that came down to Connecticut. Even Jay would come down here to see us, and so many great people, man, that we stay connected with and we continue to stay connected with. I mean, people know me if I call them, I tell them, listen, man, we in COVID-19, I'm just calling to check on your well-being.
Right.
Be safe.
Right. Absolutely. Incredible. And so, listen, I just want to thank you, man, for allowing me to interview you. So before we get out of here, how can our listeners continue to follow Superman J?
You can follow myself and the Skinny Boys on Instagram, _official_skinny_boys. Once again, _official_skinny_boys on the Instagram.
Wonderful. So I look forward to the potential of a new movie coming out on the Skinny Boys, your son's project, anything, that may come out, of the woodwork. Who knows, maybe some new Skinny Boys music, and even not. We will always continue and love the classics. You know what I mean?
And let me give you this invite, okay, man?
Go ahead.
This is to my man DJ Rip, y'all. Because of that story that you had of how you got your name,
yes,
we'd love to get you on our documentary if you can get someone to film you and send it to us. We'd love that.
Oh, that's nothing. I'll get it done. Enough said.
Yes.
Enough said. I love to be a part of it because, again, you were a part of my history. So no, man. I mean, I appreciate that. It's humbling. Thank you. And no problem. You got it. Consider it done. So
and thank all those people, not just hip hop, all those people in the music industry that came before us because they paved the way.
Yes, sir.
We went through some drama, but guess what? We had it a lot better than those that came before us. So thanks to all those musicians and artists and even people that were in management or some shape or form in this industry, thank you for helping to pave the way and continue to pave the way and keep getting it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man, I want to thank you, the legendary DJ Superman J from the legendary group, the Skinny Boys. So I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you for Vinyl Esquire. This is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. And right now you're listening to the legendary DJ, the legendary artist, Bridgeport, Connecticut's own, 1/3 of the legendary group, the Skinny Boys. And you now have been listening to the legendary DJ Superman J.
Yes. Peace out, y'all.
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast that delivers culture, truth, music.
Hello, my name is Miggs Burrows, and my guests tonight are a bunch of real lightweights. As a matter of fact, they are weightless. They are Shock and Sean, they're Superman J, and Jockbox, better known throughout the country and the world as the Skinny Boys. Hear it.
Yeah, Shock, what's up, man? Well, did you know that we came here to rock the spot? Shock and Sean, Super J, and the Jockbox, Jockbox, Jockbox.
We came here
To do what?
to rock the spot
With who?
with Super J,
And who?
Shock and Sean.
Kick it. Known to the world, the Skinny Boys with who? And the Hillman Jockbox. Come on now, everybody out there one time. Everybody say ho! Ho! Say ho! 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 We got the beats and the mics to rock the festival routine. Skinny Boys came here to rock the party and sing. We'll be sticking together through thick and thin. Jockbox, if you're ready, let the beats come in. Now, Box, what I want you to do is one time
What you want
for
me
me
to do?
and just rock the spot.
We'll rock the spot, Jay.
Check out the sounds coming out. The Hillman Jockbox guaranteed to make a party. Jump in and rock. If you like what you hear, all fresh and new. Party people, here's a solo from Jock to you. Kick it. Yo, Jock, man. Tell the people what put you out here, man.
I'm fresh.
Yo, and tell them that you gotta
Gotta be fresh.
Females, y'all. We're like
Fresh.
skinny dreads in the place to be. Super J, the skinny.
Boys are fresh.
Grab a seat and relax if you know what I mean. Skinny boys came in here to make that green. We bust through the door without a map.
shocking Sean.
Super J.
And the human jog box.
Now check this out. It's the human track machine on the beat. Yo, Jock, track it for one time.
Just one time.
Let 'em know that this is the only man that can do a beat.
1, 2, 3, here we go now. I can't even hear it. Oh, I can hear it now, my man. Could y'all hear it out there in the crowd?
Say ho! That was a funky break, and he kept it straight for all the fly people
Kick
in
it,
this here
kick
state.
it.
Pull a quarter out your pocket, drop it
Do
in the
what?
spot. Throw that beat, cause you're the human jock box.
People try to imitate, but they can't get it
Straight.
straight. Every beat he makes is a disco break. Guaranteed to be a hit. Jump up on it. It's the human jock box in his bag of tricks.
You thought it was all over my
He's hotter than the day on the 4th of July. When he makes a beat, he catches all eyes
In the streets of New York.
all Connecticut.
It's the human jock box. So bust it.
jog box.
End it.
All right. Right.